We spend all day typing, right? On our phones, our laptops. Our fingers are just flying across screens. But in that huge rush for speed, are we losing something? Something fundamental about how our brains actually learn and think? Let's get into it, because it turns out that old-school pen and paper might just have a superpower we've forgotten about.
So, has this ever happened to you? You go to write something down, like a birthday card, and you just stop. You totally know the word. You could say it. You could type it in a millisecond. But your hand, it just kind of freezes up. You can't quite remember how to form the letters. Well, there's actually a name for that. It's called character amnesia. And it's a huge clue that we might be losing this really deep connection between our hands and our brains.
So what is the deal with that? What's actually happening in your brain when your hand forgets what to do? Well, it's way more than just muscle memory. It's all about how our brains are wired. So let's dig into the science here. This deep, deep connection between the act of writing and, well, everything. Thinking, reading, and remembering.
For the longest time, people kind of thought of reading and writing as two separate things. But what brain imaging is showing us is that, nope, they're actually deeply connected. They use the exact same networks in the brain. It's like every time you write a letter by hand, you're not just writing, you're also strengthening the very same brain pathways that you use to read. One skill builds the other.
Okay, so let's pop the hood and look at the actual parts of the brain that light up. When you write by hand, you're firing up this whole powerful network. You've got the letterbox, which is what helps you recognize letters, a big area for language processing, and another part that connects what your eyes see with what your hands do. It's a total, full brain workout, not just one isolated skill.
And right at the heart of all this is a little place called Exner's area. You can think of it as the brain's writing center. It's the translator. It looks at the idea of a letter, like the letter A, and converts it into the exact motor commands your hand needs to actually draw it. It's the literal bridge between seeing a letter and writing a letter.
Now here's the real kicker. That whole powerful network we just talked about? Well, fMRI scans show it barely wakes up when you're typing, or even just tracing letters. Why? Because tapping a key is the same simple motion over and over again. It doesn't challenge the brain. It's the messy, complicated, unique act of forming each letter from scratch. That's where the neurological magic really happens.
So this brings us to the main event, right? The big showdown. Handwriting versus typing. We know the brain acts differently, but what does that mean in the real world? Like when you're sitting in class or a meeting trying to actually learn something.
All right, let's break it down. Look, typing is way faster. Nobody's arguing that. But that speed is also a trap. It lets you type everything word for word, almost like a court reporter, without really processing it. Handwriting is slower. And because it's slower, you have to listen, think, and summarize what's important. You can't just transcribe. And that extra mental work, that's what leads to remembering things way better later on. I mean, just look at the raw numbers. You can type a lot more words per minute than you can write. But here's the crazy part. That slowness, that inefficiency, is actually handwriting's secret weapon. Psychologists call this a desirable difficulty. Because you physically can't keep up and write everything down, your brain is forced to do the hard work of figuring out, okay, what really matters here? It forces you to engage.
And this isn't just a nice idea, by the way. It's backed by some serious research. A huge study by Mueller and Oppenheimer put it perfectly. They found that, yeah, the laptop users took way more notes, but the students who wrote by hand, they understood more. When it came to the hard conceptual questions, not just memorizing facts, the handwriters blew the typists out of the water.
So what's going on? It's pretty simple, actually. All that effort, the thinking, the filtering, the physical motion of writing, it creates a deeper, stronger memory in your brain. Think of it like carving a path in the woods versus just walking on top of the grass. The handwriting carves the information in, making it much easier to find later.
But the story doesn't end with note-taking. It actually gets even more important when we talk about how kids learn to read in the first place. This connection between the hand and the brain isn't just a nice little bonus. For kids, it's absolutely fundamental. Think about what's happening when you handwrite notes. It's actually a three-stage process. First, you listen. Second, your brain has to work to synthesize and reframe all that information. And then, third, your hand records it. The problem with typing is that it can let you skip that crucial second step, the thinking part.
And for a little kid, it's even more direct than that. The actual feeling of their hand moving, the physical act of making a letter, sends a powerful signal back to the brain. It's like the hand is literally teaching the brain what that letter is supposed to look like. So every single one of those messy, wobbly B's and C's is actually building the foundation for them to become a reader.
And we can see the consequences when this step gets skipped. There was a study that looked at elementary school kids, and it found something pretty startling. The more time kids spent typing early on, the worse their reading development was. It seems like pushing them to keyboards too early can actually get in the way of them becoming strong readers.
Okay, so what are we supposed to do with all this information? Does it mean we should smash our laptops and go back to feather quills? No, of course not. That's not the point at all.
The takeaway here is all about being intentional. It's about understanding that a pen and a keyboard are just tools, and like any tools, they're good for different jobs. The real goal is to get smart about picking the right tool for whatever you're trying to do with your brain.
So what does that look like in real life? Well, for kids, it means encouraging them to draw and make writing feel useful, like writing a birthday card for grandma or making signs for a fort. If you're a student, maybe try handwriting your notes for that one subject that's really tripping you up. And for everyone else, next time you need to solve a big problem or brainstorm new ideas, just try starting with a blank piece of paper and a pen. See what happens when your hand gets involved in the thinking.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. We're always going to have keyboards. They're amazing for speed and getting things done. But real learning, real creativity, that deep thinking, that stuff often needs us to slow down. So the question is, in your day-to-day life, where can you find just one moment to pick up a pen and let your hand do some of the thinking?